Around 6 in the morning, I opened the creaky door of my remote cabin deep in the Appalachian forest. The air outside was still and damp, heavy with the scent of pine and dew. I, Thomas Wilson, a retired primatologist, now a solitary old man, had barely woken up, shuffling outside in a wool sweater and worn-out boots, thinking only of the coffee waiting on the stove. Then I froze. Just a few steps from my porch, standing tall in the misty morning light, was a gorilla. Not just any gorilla, an enormous female, her dark fur matted with blood and mud. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. One arm hung limp at her side, and in her other arm, clutched gently against her body, was a tiny form. A baby. The infant gorilla didn't move. I should have panicked. I should have run inside and bolted the door. Maybe even grabbed the old hunting rifle I hadn't touched in years. But I didn't, because there was something in her eyes. Her gaze wasn't wild or aggressive. It was pleading. It was human. We stood there for what felt like hours. Just me, an old man in wool socks, and this silent giant mother, staring into each other's souls. Then slowly she took one step forward. I could hear her heavy breath. Her body trembled with each motion, pain etched into every movement. But she kept going. She climbed the 3 steps of my porch, not as an animal claiming space, but as a desperate mother crossing a final line of hope. She reached the wooden floor, then lowered herself with care, knees buckling beneath her. And then she placed the baby on the boards, very gently. The little body slumped onto the wood. It was no bigger than a human toddler. Its head flopped sideways. One tiny arm moved, barely. My heart cracked open. She backed away, sat upright again, and waited. I stepped forward slowly, crouching before the infant. Its fur was soaked. Blood matted around one ear. Its breath was shallow, but it was breathing. I looked at her and whispered, "I'll try. All right? I'll try to help." She didn't blink, just breathed, and waited. I scooped up the baby in my arms, wrapped him in my flannel shirt, and turned toward the door. No growl, no movement, just her steady, aching presence. Inside, I laid the baby on the old couch near the wood stove. Grabbed towels, a hot water bottle, a bowl of water. His body was cold and limp, but the rise and fall of his chest gave me hope. "You're still here, little one," I murmured. I wrapped him tight in an old wool blanket, turned on the space heater, made a tiny nest of warmth. Closer inspection showed his back legs were stiff, almost paralyzed. Blood oozed from behind the ear. Something was badly wrong. I picked up the phone and called Rachel Kowalski, a farm vet from the next town over. I knew she wasn't a wildlife expert, but I had no one else. Her voice crackled with sleep, then skepticism, then urgency. "Keep him warm. No solid food. Try water with honey, just drops. I'll call Ginny, the wildlife specialist." I followed her instructions. Dropped a few drops of honeyed water into his tiny mouth. His tongue moved. Barely. But it moved. And outside the window, just beyond the trees, the mother sat, unmoving, unblinking, waiting for the verdict from a man she had never met, but somehow, for reasons I may never fully understand, trusted. The baby gorilla, I started calling him Leo, survived the night. Barely. He slept wrapped in 3 blankets near the old stove, with a hot water bottle nestled beside him like a second heart. His breathing was shallow, uneven, his limbs still stiff, but every hour he twitched. Every hour he lived. And outside she remained. The mother. She hadn't moved since dawn, sitting on the edge of the trees, just within sight of my window, as if waiting for a signal, as if afraid to hope, but unable to walk away. I couldn't let her wait in vain. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and stepped onto the porch. In my hands, a tiny bundle wrapped in wool. Her eyes met mine instantly. I knelt, carefully lowered the bundle onto a thick blanket I had placed on the wood, and backed away. She stood. Her movement was stiff, deliberate. Blood still matted her fur, but she crossed the lawn again, slowly, reverently, like a mourner approaching an altar. She reached the blanket and dropped to her knees. With the gentlest of motions, she leaned over and pressed her forehead against Leo's. Just for a second, then she pulled back and looked at me. There was no rage, no fear, just something ancient, raw, wordless, as if she were saying, "You may have him. For now, I trust you." Then she limped back toward the trees and disappeared. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat near Leo's nest, my hand on his back, feeling each breath like a fragile miracle. I thought about everything. The odds, the timing, the fact that I had once spent years studying primates in the Congo. And now, decades later, A dying gorilla had appeared on my doorstep like some ghost from my past. Why me? Why here? And then I remembered her eyes and the way she'd stepped onto my porch. Not like a beast, but like a desperate mother who had exhausted every other option. The answer wasn't science. It was something else. By morning, Leo was stirring more often. He even tried to lift his head, weak but determined. His left eye was swollen shut, but the right blinked at the light. And when I offered water on a soaked sponge, he licked. I cried, not from joy, from responsibility. I knew what this meant now. It wasn't just survival. This child, this creature, was a bridge between two worlds, and his life had been entrusted to me. I had to do more. I picked up the phone again. "Rachel," I said, "he's still alive, but he's going to need more than I can give." "I'll be there in an hour," she replied, "and I'm bringing someone." Out back, the trees whispered in the breeze, and somewhere not far, I knew she was still watching. Rachel arrived just after 9 a.m., her pickup crunching over the gravel drive. She brought someone with her, a tall woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a quiet presence. "This is Ginny Calhoun," Rachel said. "Wildlife rehabber. Works with primates sometimes. Used to be at the Bronx Zoo." Ginny said little. She nodded once, took off her boots, and stepped inside. The moment she saw Leo, she knelt down next to him. No gasp, no surprise, just a focused, gentle efficiency. "His temperature's low but rising," she said after a moment. "The back leg's stiff, possible nerve damage or a fracture. The head wound needs cleaning. He's dehydrated, but you've done good work." I exhaled finally. "He's been taking honey water." She looked at me, and there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Not judgment, not awe, just recognition. "You've done more than most zoos could," she said. "He's lucky you were the one she chose." Rachel sat nearby, watching quietly. No one said the obvious, but we all felt it. This wasn't just an animal case. This was something far beyond protocol. I stepped out for a moment into the sunlight, and there she was, at the tree line again, motionless, watching. I slowly walked across the lawn, stopping several feet from her. We stood there in silence with the woods all around us. I didn't know what to say, so I said what felt right. "He's still with us." She didn't move. "He has help now, people who care, but he wouldn't have made it if you hadn't trusted me." Still nothing, just the wind in the branches, and her presence, massive, scarred, and dignified. Then when something changed, she stepped forward. Only a few steps, but close enough that I could see the tear in her left arm, the dried blood across her shoulder. Her breathing was shallow. She wasn't well. "You're hurt too," I said softly. She tilted her head. "You want to stay, don't you?" I didn't expect an answer. But then she did something I will never forget. She sat down, right there, in the sun-dappled grass, not 20 feet from me, as if to say, "I will stay. I won't leave him. I won't leave you." I sat down too. Two creatures, man and gorilla, sitting in the clearing. No words, no sounds, just the heartbeat of the forest between us. Back inside, Ginny and Rachel watched through the window. "She's not going anywhere," Ginny whispered. "Not without him." And I knew, whatever this was, whatever was coming, we were no longer alone. We were a family. Over the next 48 hours, time stopped mattering. Leo's condition remained fragile, but there were signs, subtle, tentative, that he was improving. He could now hold his head up for short moments. He whimpered when uncomfortable. He even gripped one of my fingers with surprising strength. Ginny stayed most of the time, sleeping in a spare cot near the stove. Rachel came and went, bringing supplies, syringes for hydration, powdered formula, antiseptic, warm towels. The house became a field clinic with one patient and one unblinking guardian outside. She stayed. Every hour I'd peek through the window to find her in the same spot near the trees. She never wandered. She never begged for food. She didn't even approach the cabin again. But her eyes, those vast, dark, intelligent eyes, followed every movement behind the glass. "She's grieving," Ginny said, "but she's also hoping. It's rare. Most gorilla mothers withdraw after losing a child. But she brought him to you. That's not instinct. That's intention." I thought of the scars on her body, of how far she must have come, of what might have happened to her troop, if she'd ever had one. Had she lost others? Had she been running from something? Or toward something? I sat outside with her again that evening. I didn't speak. Just brought 2 apples. One for me, one I set on the grass, closer to her this time. She didn't touch it, but she looked at it. That was enough. Inside, Leo began to cry for the first time, a raspy, broken sound like dry leaves rustling. Ginny was thrilled. "It means the pain is fading," she said. "He's coming back." That night, as rain fell softly on the roof, I lay awake thinking about purpose. All my life, I had studied primates from a distance, behind glass, from blinds, from notebooks. I had watched them, observed them, but I had never been invited into their world. Not like this. Now, one of them had crossed a line we didn't even know existed, not just a gesture of trust, but a surrender of life. And somehow I had been chosen. I couldn't fail them now. In the early hours of the morning, Leo began to twitch. Not from distress, but in sleep. A dream, maybe. His hand curled into a tiny fist. Outside, I found her lying down for the first time. Head on her arm, eyes closed, resting. We were no longer just waiting. We were healing. By the end of the week, Leo was strong enough to crawl. His movements were clumsy, uncertain, but his instincts were returning. He reached for light, for warmth, for faces. He gripped my arm when I lifted him. He cooed softly when Ginny fed him formula from a warm syringe. His swollen eye was nearly healed. The wound behind his ear had closed. And outside, when she watched it all, she never stepped closer, never asked for more. But she saw every step Leo took, every time he cried, every time he slept. She saw it all. "She knows he's alive," Ginny said. "And she knows he's safe." We began to talk about the future. "I don't think she'll leave him," I said quietly one evening. "Not unless he goes with her." Ginny nodded. "But he can't survive in the wild now. Not alone. Not this young." Silence. Then Rachel, who had just arrived with fresh bandages, spoke up. "Then maybe she doesn't have to leave alone." That thought lingered in my mind for days. What would it mean to let her stay? Not just visit. Stay. I had the land, the quiet, the experience, the connections. I could build a sanctuary, something modest, something real, just for her, for them. The state might never allow it, but I also knew this wasn't a matter for forms and permits anymore. This was about a bond that had already rewritten every rule. On the 10th morning since she first arrived, I carried Leo outside in my arms. The sun was rising over the hills, casting golden light across the clearing. I stepped down the porch stairs barefoot and walked slowly across the lawn. She was waiting as always, but this time when I approached, she rose. I knelt just 10 feet from her. Leo stirred, blinking at the bright sky. His eyes caught hers, and he reached. No fear, no hesitation. I set him down gently on the grass between us. She stepped forward, cautious, trembling. Her breath hitched. And then, with a sound that shook something ancient in me, she let out a soft, throaty purr, like a lullaby from a dream. Leo reached for her, and she embraced him, not snatched, not grabbed. She gathered him into her arms like something sacred, as if he were a piece of herself she had almost lost forever. They stayed like that for a long time, and I sat beside them, just another presence in this quiet miracle. When she finally looked at me, Leo nestled against her chest. She gave a single, solemn nod. A thank you, a promise, a beginning. That night, I began sketching plans for an enclosure. Not a cage, but a haven, a place for them both. I called old friends in conservation. I wrote letters. I called in every favor I was owed. And for once, people listened, because sometimes a story is too powerful to ignore. And this one, a wounded mother who crossed miles to find a stranger, and the old man who answered her plea, was one that would change everything. They stayed, and the forest, once silent, now echoed with the sounds of new life. The bond between us never faded. It only grew,